and just check in with yourself. I don't know if you were rushing before this or if you had a busy day or wherever you are right now, emotionally and spiritually and mentally and geographically, we are one community. We're here to welcome Shabbat together and honor each other and our tradition. And we might hear each other's dogs barking and squeaking, and that's all part of the fun of this time, isn't it? So you'll miss it when we're back in the chapel. So so everybody, notice how you're feeling on this this day of like color explosion outside. I know it's been going on for a while, but the flowers and there's a flowering tree in my backyard that I'd never noticed before. It may be the first year it really bloomed, and think about all those miracles that are taking place around us as we settle ourselves to replenish our souls, refill ourselves, take this Shabbos rest so that we can move into the week ahead. So we get ready to light our candles. And we're actually, tonight is the conclusion of the minor but very joyful holiday of Lag BaOmer, which I'm sure you all know turned very, very tragic in Israel. And our hearts are very much with those who are bereaved today, who have lost loved ones, and those who are injured, and those who love them. Horrendous devastation among our people in Israel who are celebrating Lag BaOmer at the burial site of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Many thousands of people celebrating, and it so quickly turned to devastation. So I want to name that. That's certainly on our hearts and minds, with the half of our people who live in the land of Israel and are in mourning today. But let's bring in the peace and warmth and love and light of Shabbat, helping enable us to become a light to the world in all of our relationships, in our words and our deeds, and having a little technical issue with the match. Sometimes Shabbat needs a little bit of coaxing, so Andy's going to play some just beautiful music to... There we go. See, it worked. Sometimes Shabbat just needs some extra encouragement to come in and join us. See if you can see the lights there. All right. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We're going to sing Yedid Nefesh tonight, which is another piyut, beautiful song poem from the 16th century to welcome in Shabbat in the image of a beloved one. I just wanted to share with you a little bit of introduction about this piyut. So piyut just means a liturgical poem. So it's one of longing and yearning for the closeness of God, and it's very special. It's sung at very special times, both for Kabbalat Shabbat, as we're doing tonight, also at a very beautiful sacred hour just before dawn, between darkness and light. And the Kabbalists, the mystics, saw those hours of twilight as transitional, where this world and the next world overlap. Twilight, a time which is neither day nor night, is essentially drawn from another place. So if you think of this, it's still light out because of where we are in the year, but we're moving toward twilight. And if you think about that liminal space between day and night, we can call to mind that our sages believed that during the weekdays, the attribute of judgment is ruling. And when the day ends, it asks, what have you done today? But on Shabbat, it is the opposite. Shabbat is a time of chesed, a time when the attribute of loving kindness is foremost, a time when the gates of prayer are open. So in the words of the great Kabbalist, the Ari, he wrote a poem that is also sung during twilight, in which he writes, "Rejoice now in this hour, in which there is acceptance and no rage. It is believed that one carries the spiritual experience of the previous Shabbat throughout the week and into the following Shabbat. Thus there is continuance of the Shabbat light at all times." So may we see some magic in the light. It might feel a little less magical when it's not pitch black out and we see these little flames, but let's remember that it is magical. It's a different kind of time that with these flames we've ushered ourselves into. And perhaps on Shabbat we restore ourselves with the attribute of chesed, of loving kindness, replenishing it in and towards ourselves and towards others. We're going to join together on page 322 with Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh of Harachaman Mishoch Avdecha El Retzonecha Yarutz Avdecha Kemo Ayan Yishtachaveh El Mul Hadarecha Yerav Lo Yedidutecha Minofet Tzuv Vechol Ta'am Adonai Ziv HaOlam Nafshi Cholat Ahavatzecha Ana Elna Rehanana Be'arotza Noam Zivecha Az titchazek v'titrapeh v'hayitala simchat olam Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 Yararai rai 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 rai. So this week we're going to have a wonderful adult learning opportunity, well really learning for anybody, about Jewish music from our own David Spar and Josh Cohen. And they're going to talk about what makes a piece of music, a Jewish piece of music. And actually I was thinking as I was singing that, in that melody, and I'm sure there are many melodies, as there are for almost every part of our liturgy, you can feel that sense of longing, can't you? You can feel just a yearning, a longing, kind of a simultaneous sense of gratitude for this moment that we're in, which is this moment of welcoming in Shabbat, and already the sense that Shabbat is going to end and we're going to long for it again. The cycles of being present and longing for a hoped-for future are so mingled together in our tradition. So I really felt that from the melody, and invite you to consider as we move through and sing together what the melodies evoke for you. It may be something that you haven't thought about, and maybe in preparation for this learning that we'll have for the next couple of weeks, you might want to think about that. Wanted to share a brief poem before we move into Psalm 96. Since this psalm, along with all the others, have so much nature imagery, I stumbled on one of my favorite Mary Oliver poems called When I Am Among the Trees, and in honor of this new tree that I just became friends with in my backyard with these blooms I hadn't recognized before, and all the trees that are blooming around us, I thought I'd share this poem. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locust, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say that they save me, and daily. I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around me, the trees stir in their leaves and call out, "Stay a while." The light flows from their branches. Can you scroll down, Josh, a little bit? I think there's more of the poem. And they call again. "It's simple," they say. And you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light, and to shine. We'll join together with Psalm 96 on page 13. Yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, yallai, lai, yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, yallai, lai, yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, yallai, lai, yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, lai, lai. Now the words. Shiru l'Adonai, shir chadash, shiru l'Adonai, kol haaretz, shiru l'Adonai, baruchu shemo, basru miyom leyom yeshuato, sapru v'goyim kevodo, lechol ha'amim niflotav, ki gadol Adonai, u'mehulal me'od, na'orahu, al kol Elohim, yailei, ki kol Elohei ha'amim elilim, v'Adonai shamayim asa, bodeh hadar lefanav, oz v'tiferet b'mikdasho, yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, yallai, lai, yallai, lai, 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 yallai, lai, 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 We'll turn to Lecha Dodi. We're on page 20 and 21, verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to the final verse, let's bring our bodies into it and rise in body, however we can do that, from wherever we are, to greet the beloved Shabbat presence. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela, shamor v'zachor ledibur echad, ishmi'anu So I want to just thank Andy again. I know some of you joined after I introduced him, but that masked man is Andy O'Connell, who lends us his beautiful music when we are in person and when we'll be in person again. And now we've been able to be in the same room together, both vaccinated now, thankfully, and it's really a joy to be doing this together, and we look forward to being together with all of you before long. So I want to move us into the Baruch Hu and invite everybody to unmute for the responsive lines so that we can feel that sense of connection across, in some cases, thousands of miles. So we'll be on page 28, and if you would like to unmute yourself, I believe you can do that technically, and we'll do that. We're on page 28. Please rise as you're able. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Uma'avir yom u'mevi laila umavdil ben yom u'ben laila Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hamariv aravim. We give thanks for the gift of wisdom by which we live, and that wisdom which connects us through the generations and to our people living today. We're on page 32. V'ahavatcha el tasir mimenu leolamim, baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Feel free to unmute, and we might be able to hear each other say the Shema. Shema Yisrael. Page 36. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם, ושבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We'll sing Mi Chamocha. Bring to mind a moment of crossing over in your life. It might be something recent. It might be something that you've recently been able to do because of where we are in the course of this pandemic, thankfully in our part of the world. Maybe something new that you've crossed over into doing, or another moment of crossing and of gratitude that you've experienced in your life, so that we can kind of crawl inside the words and the intention behind our people's ancient song, right from our Torah, Mi Chamocha, on page 40. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha nehedar ba'kodesh, Nora zeilot osei page 42. Sing Hashkivenu, and so many people in this world are hurting right now and are in need of an embrace, in need of a reminder that they are loved, that they are held, that they are connected to so many others. You know, we say a lot that we send our thoughts and prayers. Let's really try to harness that energy within us, that healing, loving, peaceful energy that we pray to God to give us, but let's also really try to bring that out to the many, many people who are so deeply in need of that feeling tonight. Not just all of us as we enter into evening, but all who are hurting. Call them to mind with Hashkivenu, and we're on page 42. And we pray, let us lie down in peace and wake up to a new day. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom v'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Let's remind ourselves to create and to be that canopy of peace for one another. We're on the same page, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. It's the third line down on page 42, and then we'll close that blessing with the last 3 lines on the page. Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. So we're going to move into the Amidah. Tonight we'll again give the opportunity just for some quiet, private reflection. I know not everybody has a prayer book. Some of you do. Some of you may want to use the digital prayer book. But take this time just to be alone but together, alone within the embrace of community tonight for the Amidah, and feel free to pray the traditional words or anything that's in your heart tonight. I'll have Andy's going to accompany us with some beautiful music, and we'll just introduce the prayer with Adonai Sefatai, God, open our lips that we may be able to adequately give thanks and praise. We're on page 46. Please rise. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agir tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Pray for peace with Shalom Rav on page 62. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata melech adon lechol hashalom. At this time, we pray for those in need of healing, of any kind of healing. If you'd like to bring some names into our virtual sanctuary tonight, please feel free to type them into the chat if you're able to do that. If you're at home, not on Zoom with us, I invite you to say the names of those for whom you're healing aloud. Even if you're alone, I think that there's some power in that. I want to share some names of those of our community or connected to our community for whom we're praying tonight. Linda Hoffman, Ken Yentin, Akiva Hillel ben Avraham Yiska, Mali Mead, Morelia Bat Shoshana, Vera Thompson, Sydney Jean Pisetsky, Ellison Rim, Miriam Rivka, Isaiah Jackson, Brett Cantor, Alan Cohen, Itzik Zaidan, and all those injured at Mount Meron in Israel yesterday, and the hundreds of thousands ill with COVID around the world. I see many names in the chat: Eileen Schwartz, Cousin Marvin, Steve Coney, Lois Rubin, Jane Reed. All those that we've all brought into our virtual sanctuary tonight, we hold energetically as we sing Mishaberach. We're on page 253. Mishaberach Avoteinu Mikol Habracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imoteinu Mikol Habracha Lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shleima, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. I want to share some words related to our Torah portion tonight. We're in the book of Leviticus, seemingly endless book because of all of the minutiae, all of the laws about just about everything, including things that we can't really immediately relate to, all kinds of sacrifices, all kinds of things that the ancient priests were supposed to do. And I like to joke that if being a rabbi today was anything like being an ancient priest, I definitely would not have made that career choice. But here's a little thought about this parsha. So if you were a kid in the 80s, or the parent of a kid in the 80s, or any time after that, you're probably familiar with the poet Shel Silverstein, author of The Giving Tree and many books of poetry, including my favorites, Where the Sidewalk Ends and A Light in the Attic, among others. These books were beloved to me as a kid, and as I reflected on the themes of this week's parsha, it was actually one of Shel Silverstein's poems that came to mind. It's called God's Wheel. God says to me with a kind of a smile, "Hey, how would you like to be God a while and steer the world?" "Okay," says I'll give it a try. "Where do I sit? How much do I get? What time is lunch? When can I quit?" "Give me back that wheel," says God. "I don't think you're quite ready yet." So, though there is no one Jewish idea about God, what God is, other than God being one and there being one God, Jews have had over time rich insights about the relationship between God and the Jewish people. And one of the foundational aspects of this relationship from the very beginning, from the forging of that relationship at Mount Sinai, is partnership, is covenant, brit. God isn't the driver, and we're not the driver. So I think of it more like the car used in driver's ed. We're, in a sense, co-drivers. In this week's parsha, Emor, we read dozens of instructions that God tells Moses to give to the Jewish people, and some of them are related to the days which shall be set apart as festivals. Daber el bnei Yisrael va'amarta alehem mo'adei Adonai asher tikreu otam mikra'ei kodesh elehem mo'adai. And this means, speak to the Israelite people, God is saying to Moses, these are my fixed times, the fixed times of the Lord, which you shall proclaim as sacred occasions. As with so many of our texts, at first glance, it seems a little bit kind of simple. God is just saying, these are the times that are going to be holy. These are the festivals. But if you read a little bit deeper, you notice that it says, these are my fixed times. God is saying, these are my fixed times. And then it says, which you shall declare, proclaim as sacred occasions. Many commentators over the generations have noticed the shift in the verse. There's human action, human agency required here. For these to be holy days, the Jewish people have to declare them to be so. There's actually a midrash, a text from Exodus Rabbah, commentary on the book of Exodus, and it says, when the Sanhedrin, the high court, sanctified a new month, what blessing did they make? Some rabbis say that the blessing was, blessed are you, God, who renews the months. Other rabbis say the blessing was, blessed are you, God, who makes the months holy. Other rabbis say that the blessing was, blessed are you, God, who makes the children of Israel holy. Because if the children of Israel, the Jewish people, do not sanctify the new month, it does not become holy at all. If we don't sanctify it, it doesn't become holy. Rabbi Yitz Greenberg writes in his weekly Torah commentary for Mechon Hadar that the rabbis break up this seemingly simple verse that I just read to you into 3 stages. Until Israel entered into the covenant, until the Jewish people entered into this partnership and became God's people, the festivals were set by God. The text tells us that Shabbat was sanctified and ordained by God before there ever even was a Jewish people. It says in the book of Genesis that there is Shabbat, God rested on the 7th day, and God called it holy. There was no Jewish people. Once the Jews became the people of the covenant, God said to them, you shall declare these to be days of holy gathering. You should declare these as the festivals. And this refers to the rabbinic courts declaring the date of the new month, Rosh Chodesh, and thereby setting the dates of the holidays. By Israel's actions, they become Mo'adai, my festivals, which is what we read. My festivals, meaning as God saying, my festivals, as we read in our text. So Rabbi Greenberg goes on to write that this idea of God not only reaching out to humans and entering into relationship with them, but asking them to become partners in a covenant of tikkun olam, of repairing the world, is one of Judaism's revolutionary ideas. This whole idea of a God-human partnership is a revolutionary idea, one that was not found in the ancient Near East. When I was in high school, I remember, ironically enough, writing in an essay that I agreed with Marx's characterization that religion is the opium of the masses, in some way making people so submissive to some transcendent external will that they accept the status quo, even if it was exploiting them. Only later did I come across the idea in Jewish tradition that human beings are active partners in relationship with the divine, working to bring the world to healing and wholeness through acts of justice and compassion, and that that's a central idea to our tradition. I found it so compelling. It was this idea of a mutual relationship between mortal human beings and a transcendent, unknowable power or force in the universe. Paradoxically, a symbiotic relationship of mutual need, which drew me personally into an ongoing and deep interest in Jewish theology. As Rabbi Greenberg points out, the partnership model, to many people in many religions, including Judaism at times, to many people, including some Jews at some times, the discovery of an infinite, all-powerful God who cares about humans can lead to a kind of regression, even an infantilizing of people. That one problem with a non-partnership model is that instead of taking responsibility, people think, I'll just ask God for help and God will save me. I kept thinking of that joke. I'm sure many of you have heard this joke about some guy named Irving or something, and he prays to win the lottery, and he's praying and is mad at God that God didn't ever make him win the lottery, and then turns out he never bought a ticket, right? Or there's a similar joke about a guy praying to be saved from the raging waters, and God sends a boat, but that people can forget that they have to take action, and it can be infantilizing and disempowering to human beings. And Judaism really holds this paradox that humans are both very powerful agents in a relationship and in the ongoing unfolding of this world, and also that there is a divine transcendent force, but we are in relationship with that. So the partnership concept rejects any kind of magical thinking and makes clear, this is in Rav Greenberg's words, that unless the people do their share, God will not do it for them. So another of my favorite thinkers, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, writes of God being in search of human beings. And one of his books that I first read when I became interested in this theology is God in Search of Man. In a transcript of a talk he gave called Jewish Theology, Heschel summarized his reading of the Jewish sources. God is in need of man. The idea of God being in need of man is central to Judaism and pervades all the pages of the Bible and of the rabbinic sages of Talmudic literature. And it is understandable in our own time. In the light of this idea of God being in need of man, you have to entirely revise all the cliches that are used in religious language. So again, this is a revolutionary idea, overturning, though it's an ancient idea. Once you bring it to light, as Heschel and others did, you realize that so many of the religious cliches, please God help me, really get overturned. We need to pray for the strength to help ourselves and others. Rabbi Heschel's ancestor, the Apter Rav, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel of Apta, Opatau, Poland. So now I'm thinking of Judd Apatow, who no doubt is related to this family. He actually asked the question, why did God need to create the world? He's not the first one to ask that question. But he asked about it, and his answer that he came up with many centuries ago was, before he created the world, God could do everything except for one thing. God couldn't give. It's simple if you think about it. Before the world was created, God had no one to receive, and so God was not able to give. So perhaps that's one fundamental reason for the partnership covenant model, for the creation of the universe as a whole, that there needs to be a relationship, there needs to be a space in between two partners so that there is mutuality and give and take. So Greenberg goes on to write that even though this is God's world, nevertheless, we are partners, we are part owners. We cannot just punch a clock, put in hours of work, and let others worry about the big picture. As part owners, we must look out for the general condition of the earth, whether the trends such as in climate or population are positive or negative, and take action to keep the earth on a positive keel. We cannot pass the buck and leave it to God while simply serving our time. He then brings to bear the questions that we confront as a society in our contemporary moment, and really Judaism as evolving in relationship to values that we learn along the way. And he specifically brings up same-sex marriage as one of the issues that is a wonderful example of our sacred obligation to be God's partner, in the sense that as we live in this world and as we make our way through history, that as we learn more about what it means to be human and about things like the way that loving relationships and committed families can be made, that we then shift our thinking, we evolve our thinking, we bring our contemporary values to bear on the ancient Torah that's been handed down to us, and that we're God's partner in that way too. And the great Orthodox Rabbi Soloveitchik actually said something really profound about this. He said, we received the Torah from Sinai, not as a simple recipient, but as a creator of worlds, as a partner with the Almighty in the act of creation. And that actually, there are some sources that say God has to then take the instruction manual, the Torah, back from us and abide by it, so that the mutuality, the symbiosis, we were given Torah, this wisdom around which to weave our lives, and we put it into dialogue with this world that we live in, and we create new Torah out of that conversation, and then God has to then abide by it. I can't find the quote, but Soloveitchik said something almost exactly to that idea. So I invite you to consider this partnership idea, and maybe it's new to you because we have so many metaphors in our tradition that are so hierarchical. God as a king, God as a judge, God as a parent. And there's so much that's mutual in all the imagery of our Kabbalat Shabbat service that we've moved through tonight. There's a lot of love imagery. There's a lot of beloved, and we see that from our rabbinic sages. But a lot of us get tripped up and stuck on the hierarchical metaphors that are also very patriarchal. And whenever we hear the word God, some of us might think of a man with a beard on a throne. I certainly thought of that was the image I had in my childhood. But what if we consider this idea that we are God's partner, which is so fundamental to our tradition, and how would that change our thinking about having a religious framework, about living as connected to a transcendent force that we are also in deep, intimate, covenantal relationship with? Our tradition holds this paradox at its center, that we are but dust and ashes, and also it was for us that the world was created. If you think of the Hasidic story, that we should keep two notes in our pockets at all times. One that reminds us of how powerless, how fleeting, how nothing we are, and one that reminds us of how powerful we are. We're commanded to be active partners in our own lives and in our world, to argue, to wrestle, to push against the world as it is, as we shape it into what it can and must be, while appreciating the gifts and the beauty of the world as well, and giving thanks for these unbidden gifts. The paradox of being so powerful and so powerless, like a student learning to drive, sharing the wheel. Shabbat Shalom. I saw a comment there in the chat, and I would love to take any comments and any feedback or any thoughts that arose for you when we have a chance to chat after the service. So thank you I see Lisa said that Olam Chesed Yibaneh speaks to this, and we will sing that at the end. And absolutely, I will build this world from love. You will build this world from love. We have to do that, and then God will build this world from love. So thank you for that comment, Lisa. We'll go to Aleinu on page 282. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו לגובי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והי אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו Wow, Aleinu really speaks to that idea of human responsibility. So if you haven't really ever thought about the translation of this particular prayer, Aleinu literally means it's up to us. It's upon us to do what? To praise God, to bring a sense of the transcendent into this universe. And it is up to us. So that was a nice segue from the Devar Torah into Aleinu. At this time, we're going to bring to mind and heart those we've loved who are no longer with us in this world. We'll recite Mourner's Kaddish together as a community, and we'll share with you here on the screen the words of Mourner's Kaddish, as well as the list of those in our historic community, we have a long list of those who have been members of TOS whose yahrzeit falls this Shabbat. I also want to mention a recent loss in our community. Martin Heyman, father of Lee Heyman, and grandfather of Evelyn, passed away on April 26th and will be buried on Monday. And our hearts go out to the Heyman family at this time. So I'm going to give everyone a moment, everyone who'd like to share the name of those you're remembering with us in the chat. Again, those at home without access to Zoom, if you want to just say the name of your loved one aloud, I think that's important if you're reciting Kaddish tonight. So I know that James is remembering his father Alan, and Doris and Saul are remembering their son Peter. We call to mind, of course, the dozens who were killed in the tragedy in Israel as well. And all those, especially in India, who are dying of COVID and have died. Bernice Noman and Julie Boris and Leo Levy. So you see the names on the screen. I hope everyone who wants and needs the words and is reciting Kaddish can see the words. Maybe we might be able to make them a little bit bigger so everyone can see them. And if you have the book, we're on page 294. Yitkadal veyitkadash shemei Rabbah. Bialma tivra chirute, biamlich malchute, bechayechon uviyomechon, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן חריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן ביעלמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא Before we conclude our service, I'd like to share some announcements. Thank you again, Andy. He just loves it when I thank him, so I wanted to thank him as many times as possible. I'm just kidding. So, few announcements. Tomorrow morning, I will be leading a Torah study, and we will actually be studying Torah at 9:30, not 10:30 tomorrow, 9:30 to 10:30. So calling all early birds, bring your caffeine, and I hope to study Torah with you. Sunday morning at 10 a.m., we have I think it's our final time, because it's the actual Walk for Hunger date, the virtual Walk for Hunger, and as a community, we've been having small groups walking together and raising money to fight hunger together. We'll be gathering at 10 a.m. At the Longwood T Station this Sunday morning to walk the Muddy River Loop, and Larry Green is the contact person if you have questions or would like to RSVP and let Larry know that you will be there. And kids and pets are welcome. And I will be there, so you know I would like to see your dog. And I hope that you'll bring a dog, and I might bring one or two.
And no need, Rabbi, to formally RSVP. We hope to see you.
Great.
What a great way to get our community back together again.
Great. So at the Longwood T. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
10 a.m. You can donate, however, on the team page, which is, I believe you can find that through our website. I mentioned earlier that we're going to have a wonderful learning opportunity from Josh Cohen, our music educator, and David Spar, our music director. Why does this song sound Jewish? The languages, melodies, rhythms, and harmonies of our people. This Tuesday, May 4th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. All the Zoom link is in your newsletter. So everyone should be able to access that, but just get in touch with the office if you have any questions about that. It will be an hour long, exploring and analyzing the essential elements of Jewish music. You don't need any previous knowledge or abilities, and it should be really wonderful. This Sunday is a really wonderful communal event. It's the 18th annual Connie Spear Birnbaum Memorial Lecture, sponsored by the Synagogue Council of Massachusetts. We're one of the co-sponsors of the lecture, which will feature renowned scholar Yossi Klein Halevi. He'll be in conversation with Benjamin Birnbaum, addressing the topic, Holding the Jewish Center. It's at, wow, I did not tell you what time. It's in the evening. All the information's on our website or on the Synagogue Council of Massachusetts website. Sorry about that. But that should be a really great talk. I wanted to just share some details as behind the scenes at TOS. We've been talking and meeting a lot about how and when to come together in 3D. So I want to give you all the heads up that I'm going to lead a special kind of Shabbat morning service that is actually on May 22nd. It will be a nature walk that has stops and little reflective exercises to do, mindfulness kind of based exercises that give us an awareness of nature and that sort of map on to the liturgy of the Shabbat morning service. And it's just for those who are comfortable. We'll be socially distanced in our parking lot, gathering at first, and then walking just a short distance to the Longwood Mall, which is right across from the synagogue across Kent Street, and taking a little walk around there, and then reconvening in the parking lot. So it'll be 10:30. It'll also be with Shir Hadash on May 22nd. There are going to be a variety of things happening that are going to be small group, in person, outdoors, and we're working our way towards some thinking about how we'll do some indoor limited number of attendees, indoor services as well in this lead up to the high holidays, which will have a variety of in-person and virtual options. So I'm just to plant the seed for you that we know that the world is opening up in many ways where we are here in the Boston area. And we certainly want to do that to the extent that we feel it makes sense and is safe and inclusive for everybody. So we will keep you posted on all those details, but if you want to save the date, May 22nd, we will gather outside for a special Shabbat morning, weather permitting. Lots more to come on that, and let us know if you have any questions. We're going to conclude with Kiddush and Motzi. However, I don't have my Kiddush or my Motzi. I don't have my juice, my wine, my bread. Does anybody here have it? Yes, you do. Deborah and David coming through, and Larry and Denise, beautiful Kiddush cups all. So you are going to, as if we were, in the chapel, and I invited you up, sort of like that. And thank you. Look at all these beautiful Kiddush cups. It's even better this way. And a really, really small challah. Is that a challah roll or a really tiny challah, Deborah? Okay. It's a roll. Okay, very cute and looks very delicious. We're on page 5 for Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei bri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho yahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit kilu yom tefila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. Delicious. And now for the motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Thank you to all who responded beautifully to the call for wine and challah. If only Zoom could come up with a way to taste things through the screen, that will be the next level of Zoom. We're going to conclude with Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Words are here on the screen. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai. 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 I will build this world from love. Da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai. And you must build this world from love. Da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai. And if we build this world from love, da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai, then God will build this world from love. Da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. 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 Da-da-dai, dai-dai, da-da-dai-dai. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're going to say goodbye to everybody live streaming, and then